Alright, so in this set of videos, I'm going to walk you through building a game in Java from the ground up. Now, the game is called the Pig Dice game, and up to about a week ago, I had never heard of this game. But you don't really have to hear about things to code it. Alright, you do have to know basically what it is and what you have to do and what you're looking for to code it. And so to do that, first thing we're going to do is go over to the instructions or the rules of the Pig Dice game. And all I did here was I went on the internet, typed in Google or Bing or whatever. I think I used Google. Pig game or Pig Dice game instructions. And I went to a couple different websites and then came up with this one here, the Dice Game Depot, to basically walk you through what we're looking at for the rules and stuff. And it's pretty simple. If you go down here, it says it's a simple dice game. All right. It uses a single die, and you win by being the first player to score 100. Don't get any simpler than that. But things that you need to pull out of here as a programmer is, all right, I need a variable to hold my single die, okay, whatever number that it comes up with. And then thinking along those lines, okay, you got 6 sides to a die. Somehow I need to generate that number, and it's got to be random. All right, you can't hard code it in there. It needs to pick a random number between 1 and 6 every time you roll the dice. All right, so there's a couple different variables. We need another variable to store the winning score of 100. All right, and that's going to be more of a final variable. In other words, that's just going to be something that we compare to see where we're at in the game, to see if we can end the game and say, hey, you won or not. So right there, that's 3 variables. All right, and then down here it says you'll need 2 to 10 players. That's another variable. We need to know how many number of players we're going to have. We've already covered the dice. Pencil and paper, we don't need that because we'll be doing it in the game. And then getting down into how you play, it says you choose a player to go first. And basically when we set up our game, it's going to be whoever player 1 signs up as. All right, that player throws a die and scores as many points as the total shown on the die, providing the die does not roll a 1. The player may continue rolling and accumulating points, but risk rolling a 1 or end his turn. All right, so if he rolls a 1, his turn's over. Or he can choose to end his turn. So if the player rolls a 1, his turn is over. He loses all points he accumulated that turn, and he passes the die to the next player. All right, play passes from player to player until a winner is determined. All right, and the winner is determined by accumulating 100 points. So just looking at that as a programmer, you should already know that we're going to need a loop to loop through the players, because it's not going to be everybody take a single shot and then the game's over. If nobody's hit 100 points by the time we get to the last player, we got to get back around to that first player and go through the list again until somebody hits 100 points. So that's one loop. And then the other loop, and like I say, this is at a minimum just off the top of my head right now. We'll go in and actually create this game. We may come up with more stuff. But they can roll the dice as many times as they want. And then, like say if they hit a 1, then of course their turn's over. Or they can choose to end their turn. But like I say, they can roll multiple times. So that's another loop. Now, we're going to incorporate that, but I also want to incorporate this 2 dice pig down here. All right, so it says it's the same as pig, except 2 standard dice are rolled. If neither shows a 1, the sum is added to the turn total. If a single 1 is rolled, the player scores nothing and his turn ends, and just like in single die, he loses his points for that turn. All right, but if 2 1s are rolled, the player's entire score is lost and their turn ends. All right, so that means if players, let's say we got two players, player one rolls the dice and they do it about 3 times, they accumulate, say, 25 points, and then they decide to hold. Those 25 points are safe, and then it goes to player two and they do whatever and it comes back to player one, and then they roll, say, 3 more times and they get 20 points on that roll, and then they roll a 1 and a 6, let's say. Then they lose those 20 points, but that 25 points is still safe. And then it goes around, comes back to them, and they do the same thing again, and they get, say, 18 points on this one, and then they roll 1 more time, and now they get 2 ones or snake eyes. Well, they lose that 18 points, plus they lose that 25 points that was supposedly safe. So they're back to a score of 0. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, we're going to take this, and the other thing we're going to need is we need another variable for our second die, because you got to have basically 2 different numbers, one for die 1, one for die 2. So right now we're up to at least 4 variables: die 1, die 2, number of dice, number of players, because we're going to have to ask, how many dice they want to play with. All right, so I'm going to go over to my coding environment, which I'm using Eclipse Oxygen 2, which is a free download. Now, I will say I've tried this online. I was going to use an online IDE, but I don't know. Everyone I went to, they wound up crashing and stuff. So if you can, try to get this, because you just don't seem to have as many issues and the game runs a lot better. All right. So I'm in here. I've already created my file, pigdicegame.java, which you should already know this, but your class has to be the same as your file name, minus the .java. All right, so that's going to look just like this: public class pigdicegame, and like I say, it should look exactly like whatever your file name is. All right, and then the next thing we need is our main function. And every class in Java has to have a main function. If you don't, it won't run. All right, so if you don't know what it is, you can just go over here to main function, Java example. Just type it in Google. All right, and then look, that looks exactly like what we want there. So I'm going to just copy that. Maybe I am a little slow there. All right, so just highlight it, Control C. Oh, look, I could have just did this one down here. So just highlight it, Control C, and then go back to your code, Control V for paste. And then you got to have an open and close curly bracket. All right, and I think we're about ready to start coding here. I'm all about keeping things nice and neat. If you keep them neat from the beginning, you don't have to go back and tighten everything up at the end. All right, and then I just throw a print line in there just to make sure everything's good. All right, so it'll look something like that. System out, print line, all is good. And to test this, we just click the run button up here. It'll prompt us to save it because we made some changes. But in the end, down here, it should print out all is good. That lets me know that I don't have any errors in my class, between my class and my file name, and that I have my main function. And I will show you real quick, just in case you haven't got this far. Let's go ahead and run it. We save it. All right, watching down here. And all is good. That lets me know that everything's running good. Now, if I didn't call this Pig Dice Game, or let's go ahead and make it lowercase. And you can see it's underlined here, which lets you know that I have an error. So if I run this right now, it's going to let me know that things are bad. Should print out, oh, there we go. Errors exist, that. All right, proceed with launch. We'll go ahead and proceed just to see what it prints out down here. All right, and Could not find or load main class program. All right, it just kind of lets you know wrong name. So it is case sensitive, just in case you didn't know that. And if I change the main function down here, so I'm back to, let me back that up. All right, so I got rid of that underline. So let me go ahead and change the M to an N. All right, now that one didn't underline, but you're still going to have an error because it needs a main function. So you can't just call this whatever you want. It says main method not found in class pig dice game. And then it tells you, so if you do get it wrong, you can just copy that just like we went over and did anyways. All right, so let me go ahead, and anytime you make changes to your program, always check it. So that should all be good now. I put it back to M for main, and all is good. That means that all the code that I type in here, as long as it's good code, I don't have any errors, I should say, should run down here with no problem. All right, so let's go back, and we're going to put some notes in here of things that we want to do based on what we read on the game. All right, so I made some notes in here. One of the things is we're going to import any libraries needed, and that will come up once we get into taking input from our user, because we're going to need something called a scanner class. And for that, you will need the java.util library. All right, so I'm giving you a little bit of heads up coming down the road. All right, we're going to create variables for our number of dice and number of players. Looking at it, I don't want to get into the dice yet, die 1 and die 2, because I don't want to get too far ahead. All right, we will need that when it comes game time, but we don't need that in the beginning. But we still need to know how many dice. All right, and then we're going to prompt the user for the number of dice to play with and store that to the variable, number of dice, or whatever you call it. We're going to prompt the user for the number of players and store that to a variable, number of players, once again, whatever you call it. And then we're going to check to see that the variables are accessible in the program, which means that they're good down here. And that's one of the reasons I use this all is good, because that lets me know that I've gotten out of any loops or anything that I've done. I don't have any errors. And if I get all the way down to all is good, then everything should be good. All right, so I'm going to leave you here. Let you go in there and give it a shot. Don't go to the next video right away. Go in there, see if you can get this stuff set up. Once again, you should be able to get input from the user, a number, and remember, for the dice, we either want a 1 or a 2, and for the players, we want anything between a 2 and a 10. And I'll give you one more hint. Those are both integers, all right? If you don't know about the different data types, make sure you read up on that. I mean, in this game, I believe all we're going to use are strings and integers. All right, and then, of course, we're going to have other variables like a scanner and a random number generator and things like that. But for the data types, strings and integers. All right, so good luck, and we'll see you in the next video where you can compare, see what you've done to what we're going to do. And I'll break it down step by step in the next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.